Hi everyone, I am Massimo and this is QLC Plus video tutorial number 6. This time I'm gonna talk about RGB matrices and how to use them in QLC Plus. First of all, let's explain a little bit the name of this function. RGB because it's oriented to RGB fixtures, which are now becoming more and more popular on the market. So this function is basically dedicated to that kind of products, that kind of devices. The word matrix instead can be a little bit tricky because one could think that a matrix is something with 2 dimensions, but basically a matrix can have also 1 dimension. So it has really different usages. In fact, in this tutorial, I'm gonna cover a lot of topics and I'm gonna demonstrate the usage of RGB matrices in a couple of main cases with different goals. So I suggest to watch the video until the end to have the whole picture of how this function works. Okay, so let's start from an empty project and I'm gonna start adding the fixtures I will need in this tutorial. So first of all, some bars from Stairville. I don't actually own these fixtures, just picking random ones just for the purpose of demonstrating the functionality. Okay, so 4 LED RGB bars. Then I will need a couple of American DJ, these funny bars here, in 12 channels mode. I will need 2 of them, right? Then some moving heads, always from Stairville, but just as I said, as demonstration, and I will add 4 of them. Okay, once I have done this, the first thing to do when creating an animation with an RGB matrix is to group the fixtures in fixtures group. So I will start selecting my bars here and I'm gonna add them to a fixture group, which I'm gonna call linear group. Okay, and the dimension are the size. It's very important because the size actually represents what you will see in the matrix. So bear with me, I will need a 16 by 1 group. So if I go to the newly create group, this is the fixture group editor. So I see my 4 lights. Why I see 4 lights? Because every spot, every space in a fixture group is what in QLC Plus is called head. A head is normally is the representation of a light source, and a fixture normally has just 1 light source. But for example, the bars I'm gonna use, they have 4 heads. Basically, this is the product. As you can see, they have 4 light sources. So the fixture definition of this product also defines the 4 heads to use them individually in QLC Plus. Otherwise, 1 head only will mess things up and you will not be able to use the product with the full capabilities. So that's the bar. So I'm gonna add the fixture to my group, and if I go here, I will see 4 new heads because it's 1 fixtures but 4 heads, and here's my bar. Then I'm gonna add the 4 moving heads again. So here's my moving heads, and then finally the last bar. So I completed the group. So I have my bars, 1 bar, the 4 moving heads, and another bar. Okay, so let's go to functions here and create an RGB matrix. The first thing to do, otherwise it will not work. The first thing to do is to associate a fixture group to the matrix. So in this case, this is my linear group. So here it is. Okay, so now to understand what actually will happen on the lights, I will use the DMX monitor. So I'm gonna switch to the 2D view mode and resize it a little bit to zoom out, to zoom in actually, and I will start adding the fixtures here. So enable the labels, and there you go. Sorry. Okay, basically this probably doesn't make sense right now, but it will as soon as I have everything in place. Okay, so here's my funny bar. As you can see, each head is represented as a circle. So my parse has just one head, while the LED bar has 4 heads, 4 circles. So I need to rotate it, not this one actually, this one. I need to rotate it like this. Okay, so the other bar here, 90 degrees. There you go. And then the 4 moving heads like this. Right, I'm gonna go quickly on this one. It's just to understand the thing. Okay, so once I have done this, basically I'm ready. Let's say this is the displacement of the lights on my stage, right? I am already ready to see what an RGB matrix can do on my group, on my fixture group. Okay, so if I hit test run here, I will see what the matrix can do on my group. So this is the animation. As you can see, once the groups have been defined, and once the fixtures are placed on a real stage, on a real venue, you really need a few seconds to set up an animation with the RGB matrix. If I open up the speed dial, I can of course modify the speed of the matrix. So if I go down, and that's the result. I can tap, I can set fade in time. For example, let's go a little bit slower, and I set a little bit of fade in. As you can see, now every light has a fade in time, and this is the behavior. Okay, so let's do not use any fade in for right now. Okay, so let's close this. Now the funny thing of this function is that you can change the preset until you find the animation you want. For example, if I go to fill, this is the result. Okay, it's a little bit slow and we don't have much time, so like this. Or I don't know, fill from center. These are, I mean, just basic animations, but the combination of a fixture group plus the real displacement of your fixtures plus the pattern of an RGB matrix can create in very few seconds an animation that otherwise will take a lot of time manually with a combination of scenes and chasers. Okay, the only thing that makes the difference is that an RGB matrix, each step has a constant duration, so the animation is constant from that point of view. Okay, so for example, there's this one as well. Okay, and then you can play as much as you want with as much as you like with the colors. And for example, if I set a start color and an end color, I will get a lot of results. There are a lot of presets already done in QLC Plus. One nice is, for example, this one, and you can actually play around with the settings. For example, this one or the abstract one. Okay, these are animations that it's almost impossible to do manually with scenes and chasers, but as you can see with RGB matrices, it's really straightforward. It can take no time. Okay, so if I disable the preview, this is the preview here. For example, if you want something a little bit faster, you've got this one. You can play around with the parameters. Okay, if I go hit test run. Okay, so this is just to understand this first case, which can really we can really apply with traditional RGB lights, let's say. Okay, so let's stop this, let's close this, and let's make another example. So if I want another to play around with another displacement, I can create another group, which I'm gonna call, I don't know, grid group. And since I have 4 heads, I'm gonna create a group like this. Okay, so gonna move the heads actually like this. Okay, sorry. And then moving heads to grid group like this, right? And then my bars, grid group again. Okay, so this is kind of messy, but I had 2, had 3, and had 4 like this, and grid group again, had 1, had 2, had 3, and had 4. Okay, so this is another displacement for a fixture group, but let's create another matrix and let's go to grid group. Okay, so as you can see, QLC Plus sees that not all the grid of the fixture group is filled, but just a few spots where the heads are actually there. So if I go to back to the monitor and hit let's go a little bit faster like this, and I hit test run, I've got an effect like this. And again, I can play with presets, with colors, or I don't know, for example, this is a crazy one, or again with a gradient, which now happens like this on the preview. Okay, so for example, here you have actually a 2-dimensional matrix, so you can play also with the horizontal and vertical adjustments. For example, let's go a little bit wider here. For example, this one, if I hit test run, this is the result. So basically, if this is the front of the stage and this is the back, you will have the effect of lights changing from front to back of the stage. And as you see, it takes no time to create an animation like this, which is kind of complex, but it's easy to create. Okay, so I haven't actually talked about the matrix editor here, but as you can see, it's very simple. Let's go back to a simple preset like this. Okay, here you've got the preview, and you can play around with the parameters. Okay, and it basically tries to give you the preview of what you will see on your lights. Basically, even if you don't have them connected, you can imagine already what would be the result. And then you've got a bit of controls here. If the pattern has some properties, they will be displayed here. So for example, in this case, I've got the vertical, the orientation property, so I can play around with it like this. And I can play with these settings. For example, the run order, which goes ping pong, or for example, the direction, which goes backward like this, or ping pong backward like this. So all the combinations of these parameters. Okay, so and then you've got the speed dial to control the properties of the duration or the fading of the LEDs of your lights. Okay, so this is for let's say traditional RGB lights, but let's go to the other use case scenario of RGB matrices. Okay, so and where actually the 2 dimensions of a matrix is very important and very and fully used by the matrix. So in this case, I'm gonna use a functionality which is called RGB Panel, which is dedicated to panels that you can find on the market actually, or you can build yourself at home with a little bit of wiring capabilities. So this dialog here is actually dedicated to quickly create an RGB panel, and it has all the options to represent in QLC, plus to represent an RGB panel as it has been built for its characteristic. So for example, you've got of course the size. You can determine the size of the panel. It is divided. I mean, we will see later what this means in terms of internal fixture creation in QLC+. But basically, you can give the physical dimensions. So, for example, I need a 1 meter square panel. You can set the orientation. So where is the starting point? So what is the position of the first LED of the panel? And then the displacement. So for example, sometimes panels are composed by individual RGB LED strips, and you can solder them as a snake or in a zigzag form, right? Okay, so let's presume we have a snake panel. If you have seen my tutorial, my technical preview on the Raspberry Pi, you have seen a panel actually homemade built, and that's exactly made of this. So 10 strips of if I remember 16 LEDs each. In this case, I'm using 10 by 10, so 10 rows of 10 pixels, 10 LEDs actually. Okay, when you add an RGB panel, a fixture group is automatically created. So here, otherwise manually it will be really very time consuming. So QLC Plus helps you with this because it already places all the heads, all the pixels, let's say all the LEDs in as you requested them to be. So for example, in this case they are in zigzag displacement, as a zigzag displacement. Okay, so let's kind of quickly add this panel to the 2D monitor preview, and there you go. I placed the panel on the second universe, otherwise I wouldn't have space for it in the first universe. Okay, so let's try to be quick here. And row 1, there you go, and then row 10 at the bottom. Okay, so there's one thing missing here, because as I said, I've added a snake panel, so I need to rotate this 180 degrees each 2 rows, every 2 rows. Okay, there you go, and there you go. Okay, let's clean the labels and resize this. Okay, so if I add a new RGB matrix, and this time I say I want the RGB panel, as you can see now I have a full RGB matrix which goes to my to every single LED of my panel. So if I open the monitor here and I hit test run, this is the result. So exactly what you see on the preview here. There's also a goodie on the editor, on the matrix editor, which is the representation of a pixel as a square and not a circle. So if you've got a panel with square pixels, this can give you even more realistic preview of what the panel will do. Okay, so on a panel you have a lot of additional things that you can do. For example, you can do some texts. Okay, let's go down with the speed, and if I hit test run, this is the result. So here you can control the string, the text you want to have on your panel. But I mean, this is this is impossible as well manually with scenes and chases, because you're going to be crazy to create something like this with a chaser. With an RGB matrix, you can take advantage of this internal functionality of QLC Plus to go straight to the final result. For example, there are also let's go back here, and again you can control the test tutorial, for example. There you go, you can control the colors, and it will actually do a fade transaction to the final color like this. Okay, it's a little bit slow again, but just to give you the idea. For example, you can have more complex animations like squares and circles like this. If I had a panel attached to my computer, I would see this pretty straightforward. And again, here you've got you can control the parameters. So for example, there are a bit of parameters you can control of each of these scripts, of these patterns. For example, this is another one. And again, you have stuff like this. I mean, an RGB matrix is much more interesting on this kind of configurations, but as you see, there are really a lot of usages for this function. So it's up to your fantasy, it's up to your imagination what can be done with this function. I think you need to experiment a little bit, find the better fixture group that represents what you have in mind, and then experiment, with trial and error, and so on. So QLC tries to help you with this, but as much as it can. So basically this is pretty much it regarding the functions creation of RGB matrices. So let's go to the virtual console and let's see what can be done with this function. Obviously, as we saw in a previous tutorial, you can connect a function to a button just to start and stop it. I'm gonna show you the two matrices I created before with the monitor like this. So start and stop at each point during the function, and same thing for the other matrix like this. Also you can use a slider in playback mode. You connect a function to it, for example the panel, right, play, and with the slider you can not only start and stop the function but also adjust the intensity of the whole matrix, of the whole animation, like this. Okay, if you go to 0 it will stop. The interesting thing about RGB Matrix is that they have a dedicated widget in the virtual console, which is this icon here, like a DNA icon. When you create it, as you can see, it has a layout with as much as possible all the elements you need to control an RGB matrix. For example, in this case, when it's empty, you have a slider, exactly like a playback slider we've seen before, to control the intensity and the playback of the matrix. And then you have two buttons here that are click and go buttons. Click and go is like a shortcut to some functionalities in QLC+. In this case, we need colors, so these two buttons represent the start and the end colors as we've seen in the RGB Matrix editor. And then you've got a drop-down menu with all the list of presets you can select for your matrix. So let's see it in action, but before we need to obviously associate the RGB matrix function we need to control. So I will associate the panel. Forgive me, but it's the most complete, the most visually complete result that I can show you. I've got nano control connected, so I will associate my nano control slider to the widget slider. If I go on operate mode, I can control the slider with my nano control, and then I can change the preset, for example, as we've seen before. It's using the last colors that I've used before in this tutorial, but I can always change them. They actually change on the fly, as you can see. If I release the mouse, then it gets there, for example, like this. And I can change the preset, obviously, again. Okay, so this is the basic control of a matrix. But let's see what this widget can really do, because it can do a lot more. There's a tab here in the properties page, which is called custom controls. A custom control is actually an additional shortcut or property, as you want to call it, to property of an RGB matrix. So here you have what is possible so far for to control the RGB matrix. So basically you use always the same matrix, in this case is this one, but you can change on the fly a number of properties that you precisely need during, for example, your live shows. So I can add a new start color, for example, our lovely red color. The interesting thing is that every custom control can be associated to an external input. So for example, in this case, I will associate my nano control solo 1 button. Then I can add an end color, for example, this purple one, and I will associate another button. I can add another start color, and so on, like this. Obviously I can add a preset, and it's interesting to see that in this case you can add a preset but also its specific properties. So for example, if I want the gradient we've seen before, I want the abstract preset a little bit wider than this, and I want it vertical. If I hit OK, I will create this entry here telling me that it will use these custom parameters here. So vertical, 10 pixels wide, and the abstract preset. I can obviously associate another button. I can add another text like this, and for example another preset like the squares, and I don't want to maybe I want them to fade out like this. Okay, that's it. As you can see, when I hit OK, the custom controls are added to the layout of my widget in the Virtual Console as buttons. So I can directly access them with the mouse or with the external controls that I have associated. So when I go on operate mode, if I start the function, then I can hit my nano control buttons, for example the start color, the end color, or the other start color, but obviously I can change them with the mouse as well. Or I can go directly on preset plus properties that I've chosen. For example, the gradient here, it goes gradient, but also with in vertical and using the abstract preset. Same thing for the squares that I want them to fade out. I can obviously change the colors, and you can achieve all the combinations of the custom controls you've added. So it's really flexible, it's really complete, and basically it should give you all the power that you need during a live show. It's just a matter of first design phase of this layout, and then you can really control the matrix live as much as you want. Okay, so basically this is it for the matrices. As you can see, it is a very powerful tool. For some aspects it is complex, for some others it is very simple, because once you get into it, it gets really simple, and really you can create animations in no time, in very few seconds. Okay, so this is it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and bye.